welcome to the channel. I'm Summer. Today's haircut, we are creating tons of texture and tons of movement and shape with layers on this mannequin. This was a previous haircut I did, all one length bob, so we're gonna be really giving her some nice, edgy, fun layers with a curtain bang. This cut is gonna be great for people who don't maybe like your traditional style layers and want a little bit more movement and fun with their haircut. Let's go. Okay, so we are just jumping right in today. We're gonna be creating lots of layers and movement. Like I said, she is pretty much all one length completely. Originally, this was a side part, but I'm moving her to the middle. So the very small layers she had, they're off now because this was parted on the side. So when you go back to the middle part, they're off. So we're gonna be, not essentially blending those in because we're gonna be creating a lot of layers, but I can't wait to create a nice bang here with the curtain bang and lots of movement and texture. So we're just gonna separate the back from the front with our traditional parting right at the ear. And I'm gonna clip this out of the way and do the same on the other side. Okay, so we're just gonna hop right into creating some layers and shape through here. I wanna create movement, but I don't want necessarily the complete perfect blended layers that you often see with a round or square layer. I almost wanna have I want it to look more lived in and a little bit more disheveled. So I'm gonna be using both my regular cutting shears, my thinning shears, and probably a razor. So we're bringing it all out today where these are the types of cuts I like doing for fun. So I'm gonna just literally be grabbing pieces of hair, and I'm more so going to be point cutting into them to start off this back. I don't wanna remove a ton of bulk per se, but to create more kind of a messy pieciness. So I'm just coming in and lightly point cutting. We're removing a little bit of length, but not anything crazy. Haircuts like this are good too for people who have natural wave and curl if you wear it that way a lot, because you kind of create a little bit of movement throughout it. So it'll spring up the curls different and usually make stuff come together really nice. And I'm just gonna take my next section here. And I am taking a little bit larger size sections than I typically would, just because we're not creating those traditional layers. I'm not quite as worried about completely perfect sectioning all the way through. And so what I also mean by freehand layers, I like to come in and I will just at random, basically sliver slide cut into it. So a thing I like about these types of layers is it helps remove bulk and thickness, but you can maintain that length. But you can go in there, remove the length, remove some weight, but you keep the length here. And that way if somebody curls their hair, waves it, you get pieces internally that are gonna create more texture and movement. And doing layers like this is kind of more very specific to the person. Not everyone's gonna want this, but this is a great type of way to create layers with somebody who wants a little bit more of an edgy look. They like a lot of texture and a lot of pieciness and movement. If somebody's really traditional, they're probably not gonna want these types of layers. So now that I'm coming to this top layer, I am gonna lightly come into your traditional type where I'm gonna bring it out like I would if I were to create a round layer. And we're just gonna point cut into all of this hair right here. So point cutting, if you're not familiar with point cutting, I do have a video where I break down the difference between point cutting, blunt cutting. I believe that I'll link below, but a blunt cut, you're cutting straight across. I'll do this piece just for it. You're just cutting straight across. It's a nice, hard, even line. Point cutting, you're taking the hair and you're coming into it and you are pulling your shear out while you lightly close. You're just trying to sort of remove the hair lightly. You're not trying to cut a set amount of length off. It's more so to create texture. You can certainly do like a actual point cut where you remove a little bit more length, but the way that I'm doing this today, it's to just more so create texture and movement. So that way there gets more shape to the hair. So you go in, out, and as you're pulling out, you close that shear with your thumb. I'm gonna come in and do a little bit more of my slide cutting layers. So I'll still move like I'm taking a regular section here, part it with my comb, and then just slide into it. And you can do it throughout the whole section or just in set areas. Kind of depends on what your client's open to. Like I said, this cut is for people who want a lot of texture movement. They maybe don't like that like cookie cutter traditional layer. Come to this other side. Okay, so we've already got a lot more movement that you'll see even more so when we go to style it later. Haircuts like this, I love to adding like pastes or texture sprays because you can really create that like messy, piecey look all through the hair. So like I said, we're gonna be doing a curtain bang for the front, and I'm gonna actually create that first and then base our layers for the front off of that curtain bang. So with a curtain bang, I want a nice swoop here where we have some good bend. I want it right about in the cheekbone area. I like to start off with them a little bit longer just because it gives you a little bit more leeway. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come in. I always start with a small triangle section guided by the edge of the eyebrow. It's okay if it's not completely perfectly exact. You're just setting your guide. But I always like doing the triangle shape for my guide. And then what we're gonna do is take the center here. I'm gonna twist. And again, I want it in this cheekbone region, so I'm gonna cut basically right under the tip of the nose, and that'll give us enough wiggle room. And let that fall, go back to that middle part. And then you're just gonna take a look, and that's lining up nicely. Maybe a tiny bit on this corner. And then you're just gonna continue connecting in small sections with cutting this down at an angle here. Okay, so I'm gonna comb down. I see my original guide right here, so I'm gonna bring my finger down. I'm gonna let that pop out, and then we're just gonna angle straight down. So we're gonna have a nice little swoop here. And I'm gonna match on the other side first, and then I'm actually probably gonna take out my razor. And then this, because I'm on the opposite side, it's a little easier to just come up into it rather than angling down. And then what you want to do is take a look. I think I need to cut a little bit more off in this corner here on our original side. Just barely. This part is optional. I'm gonna choose to blend this in with my razor. You could still do it with your regular shears and just go in after the fact and use your razor to create more texture. That's all personal preference, but I'm gonna use the razor just to give a little bit more texture to the ends. I'm gonna grab my section here. Hands are at an angle. And we're just gonna glide down with our razor, cutting into that. This was angled a little bit longer in the front. The original haircut was. So after I get her dry, if I need to tweak that, I will. And then I'm just gonna lightly nip at that with my regular shears. I've never been one who's like a solid start to finish person who does a haircut with a razor. I usually typically just use my razor in set areas. I've never been good about like actually removing real length for like the back perimeter with a razor. I've mostly in my career used razors for creating more so texture. Combing down, hands are at an angle, my fingers are pointing down. I'm just gonna take my razor and continue that through the ends. Probably use my scissors here to just lightly blend that in. It's always at the ends is where I have a problem with like connecting with my razor. And then what you do is you bring it forward, check your pieces along the bottom to make sure they're matching up. See if you need to cut off one side more than the other. And now we're gonna create the rest of our layers through the sides. And I think I am gonna actually use my razor to do so. And first I'm gonna re-spritz her down. Okay, so before we create our side layers, I do wanna make note, I am going to make sure that I keep this perimeter intact. I don't want to get too thin looking through the sides here, so I wanna make sure that I leave this bottom perimeter of her sides out just to ensure we maintain the length and weight. Because a lot of times people through the sides is where they lose their thickness. So I'm just making a mental note of that, and I'm gonna actually put a little clip here just so that's always there in place. Okay, and then what I'm gonna do for her layers is I'm gonna base it off of the length of her face frame. So I'm gonna be directing everything sort of back, and I'm gonna be angling my fingers just to follow along with that guide, because again, this angles back. So when you're pulling it up, you still wanna be angling your fingers. We're gonna come straight back and just start cutting. And after I get the bulk of the layers cut, then I'm gonna go in with that razor to add more texture. Back, angle up, cut. So as I take my sectioning, I am just doing a slight diagonal back. Grab that section in front. See your previous guide, cut. gonna take out these clips. And then as I come into this back corner, I'm gonna see if I need to blend it into the back layers that we've created. So I'm coming straight up. Find your previous guide. You can see it right in here. We're into our crown back area. And we're just gonna make a meet here in that middle. And that blends in well. So now I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side before using my razor to create a little bit more shape. Again, I wanna be careful of this perimeter. I don't wanna remove too much weight, so I am gonna make sure to leave that out. Taking our first section, back at a diagonal. Come straight up and just follow with that guide. See my old guide here? Cut. Almost to that back crown area. We're one section in front of it. Straight up, I see my guide. Cut. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna come across this top center first. And I'm just gonna make sure her top layers are blending even enough up here. So I'm just gonna take the top section. I have my scissors in my hand. Come up and we're just gonna cut into maybe in that middle part if they're not meeting up perfectly. So the back we did a little bit less traditional, and then this front pieces are kind of like a mix of traditional layers, but because we're gonna go in with that razor and add some more texture, they're a little bit more lived in. And that is one hair there. All right, perfect. So now the fun begins, where we're just gonna be creating a little bit more of that lived in shape and pieciness. So all I'm gonna be doing with my razor is I'm gonna be directing these sides back towards me, just so we maintain a little bit more weight. I'm gonna be taking diagonal sections. And all I'm gonna be doing is literally grabbing the hair, and we're just gonna go in and just create a little bit of texture. So this is sort of similar to that slivering we did in the back. We're just doing it with a razor. Direct it back. And just glide. I find razor cutting to be so relaxing. Like, I love the sound of it. I like the feel of it. It's a little bit different. And you're just lightly coating it. You're not cutting into it. You don't want to apply pressure, just really lightly to graze sort of that outer layer of the section. And then here on this face frame, very, very slightly, just very mild. We're gonna repeat the same on the other side. A little bit of a diagonal. Glide. Very little hair coming off with that. And then again, where this front face frame curtain bang is, just very lightly. All right. So we've got a lot more shape and movement all through the cut. I'm going to style her first, really work to give a nice bend to these curtain bangs. And I'm actually gonna use this product from L'Oreal Techniarch. It's a nice like blow dry cream to paste. When you really work it into your hands, it creates a little bit more texture in the hair to make it a little bit more pliable. It's one of my favorite products. So I'm putting that all through the hair, and then we're gonna do a nice blow dry, create a lot of movement. I just love a curtain bang. I love a curtain bang. Who doesn't? Okay, so here is it styled. I just did it with a big round brush and then a smaller brush for the curtain bang, and we have a lot more movement everywhere. I wanna soften this up. I feel like it's a little too like thick. So I'm gonna use my texturizing shears for that. I did not use my texturizing shears while actually cutting. So I'm just gonna come in and sort of like do a little bit of a point cutting style. So I'm coming in at an angle and just gliding out as I close, just to soften them. This mannequin is like so super thick. Add a little bit of softness there. Do a little bit along the top. But the one thing that I like about doing layers this way in a haircut is like, it's not meant to be completely perfect. So you still want to go over it and check everything. Oh my God, look how much more movement. And make sure that like, there's nothing like so crazy off about it. But what's nice is you usually don't do a lot of dry cutting because it's meant to sort of just have like this messy look. You can go in and certainly texturize in areas if you need it, like I'm doing with her. But we got a lot of shape and movement to the cut now versus before. They're really, I mean, I liked the all one length of it with that type of cut, but I do love the movement a bang gives. Okay, I think I'm gonna texturize just a little bit in this back corner here, just to soften it up. It's a little bit softer through this side, so just lightly underneath. And again, I'm just gonna use my texturizing shears for that. I'm just gonna clip a piece out of the way. And I'm just gonna come in and soften that up. Perfect, lots of shape, lots of movement. So I'm gonna use a little bit of a styling paste so you guys can see what it looks like with a little bit more like pieciness to it, so you show off those layers more. This is the AG Dry Lift Paste. I use this stuff all the time. It's one of my absolute favorite pastes to use on dry hair. It also works as a dry shampoo almost too, I recently learned. All right, so yeah, you can use the paste all over or just in set areas like the fringe. It doesn't have to be everywhere. I like using it everywhere. It's all just personal preference, but I love a good paste and I love a good curtain bang. So I'm gonna go ahead and get her finished and styled out, and then we'll get you guys out of here. You guys will have to let me know in the comments if you liked this haircut more without the layers or with. All right, here we have our finished and final look to our textured layered lob. This was so fun. We've got lots of movement in the back now, and then the sides create tons of texture and movement as well with the layers, how we created them. And then I love our curtain swept bangs. Again, remember when doing this type of cutting, you don't have to stick to like your traditional round layers. You can be a little bit more fun with your sectioning and have fun using all three of your shears. I hope you all enjoy, and I will see you on the next video.